Hello and welcome back to another interview. As you can see, I am joined by Soulcas. How you doing? I know you just got off a prac. Any good news?
Yeah, no, feeling pretty good. Good to be back home. We had like a long boot camp in Madrid, so nice to also get some time back and kind of reset before next year.
Okay, so I'm gonna go all the way back. The way I like to do these interviews is set up your path in esports and then make people wait like 40 minutes to actually hear some stuff about Koi. So I
Nice.
kind of want to know what got you into gaming. Like, what was the first maybe game that you were like, okay, I'm actually pretty good at this, or maybe one that somebody got you into, like, okay, this is my like first video game.
I think for me, I was always like bit of an FPS head. I started
Okay,
playing Halo when I was like 4 years old or something, like on the original
four.
Xbox. Yeah, I don't know. I remember just asking like my parents, I just want Halo or something, and then mom was like, "What's an Xbox and all of this?" And I just turned into like this gamer, and then I think over time, uh, I preferred to play on the PC rather than Xbox. Like all my friends would play like Xbox and like FIFA and stuff on there, but I
Mm.
always just preferred like the mouse and keyboard for some reason. Especially like the old school. Like I remember playing like Call of Duty 4 mods. There was like this zombie mod and stuff I was playing when I was younger, and then yeah, over time I kind of just I was playing a lot of League, and then League was too toxic, too mentally bullying for me. So I was like, I'm gonna go to CS, and that's when the beta of CS came out, and I
League
kind of
was too
just
toxic, so you went to Counter Strike.
yes, everyone can agree that it's the most sane thing to do.
Okay.
So I went to basically just play CS from then on. This was like whenever the beta came out, like 2013 or something. But I did play like Source before, like I
Okay.
mainly did like kind of like mini games and like surf and stuff. But yeah, and then from then on, I just kind of kept playing small UK teams here and there, and I went to
Mm.
an event, won like a small prize, and they give you those like big checks where it's like
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
won you won like £500, and I was like, oh my god, and I showed it to my parents, and I was like the first like kind of validation that
Do
I
you still
could
have
kind
it?
of. It's literally bro, I could actually pull it out right now probably. But it's literally like behind my like
Oh, that's cool. That's
drawer,
really
yeah.
cool. Well, that was what I was going to kind of move on to. Now, I have a couple of questions. Number one, obviously, you play with, I would say, a lot of the more well-known UK orgs, but I think the question more so on everyone's mind is when did you change your in-game name from Dom with two M's to Soulcas that we know and love?
So I think for me, it's like I remember I was like playing a bunch of death matches in CS, and I was like, man, if you see a Dom in a death match, you don't know who that is.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking like if you have like more of a unique name, and then someone says, if someone sees like Soulcas, you know who that is. But then, like, because I remember I was playing deathmatch and I saw like another Dom, I was like, damn, it's a bit maybe too many Doms. And then I remember I tried to like mix it with like typed I did like Dom Soul like SUL, so it's like half my last name. But then I was like, nah, it's a bit nah. And then eventually, I think my friend like gave me kind of the idea. I was like, what if you just put like an O in your last name and call it Soulcas? I was like, you know what? This is kind of a good idea. And then yeah, and I was like, I'm kind of glad I made the move. It did feel like weird, even for like 2 or 3 years when people call me Soulcas. I mean, even
Mm.
still to this day, I find it still really weird. People call me Soulcas instead of Dom. Um, but yeah, I think that's I'm kind of glad I did that little
With
shift.
see, I find that as well because what I've done is basically what your first option was, which is
Yeah,
take my first and my last name and
well,
then
this is news
change
to
the
me.
S's to Z's because it. Yeah, my surname is Bismeyer, so I did Tombizz, but I changed them
Ah,
to Z's because people would say Bis, and the
correct.
Tom Piss name was coming.
Yeah, I was about to say
So
that's close to Tom Piss.
I went with that, but I do also if someone calls me the full name, like they go Tom Biz, I'm like, yeah, just Tom. Just Tom is cool. You
Tom
don't
will
have to
do.
do that.
Yeah, I feel you.
But anyway, with your sort of like I would say either way, your CS career, you won some epic lands, you played within the UK scene. Now, at least from my knowledge, the UK scene was you had
Yeah.
said you moved from League to the UK scene, which I'm not sure if that's a downgrade in toxicity. But you look at the players that you were playing with or against, and a lot of them people will know and love. You're talking a Link, Russ, Brody, Luzza, Eccles, Ardis.
Mhm.
Did you kind of then, when you moved to Valorant, look at that and go like, okay, these were the guys that like, these were the good guys. I'll go
Mhm.
with those guys. I'll play with those guys because I know what I'm getting.
I think so. Basically, like our Fish 123 roster was basically a roster already in CS,
Okay.
and instead of Link, it was someone called like Alex S, a Swedish player, and basically we, yeah, when the game was coming out, we just kind of knew like, yeah, UKCS is a bit of a dead end. Like the only way to get out of UKCS is just to kind of stat pad and like maybe try and like you have like just good performances and just hope you can get like sent to another team.
Yeah.
So I think that was like the pretty easy decision for all of us. And then Link was already checked out. He was still playing like ESEA like advanced or something, but he was like, I'm gone to Valorant because he was still in Vex at the time
Mm.
with like Mezzi and Asher and now like big names in CS. But um, yeah, we kind of just made the move and then Trav joined and then I think yeah we knew it was like a good choice when we started like playing these tournaments, winning and like the game was like also just fun and also owned by Riot, which we knew would like they'll do really well with the game, like push it a lot.
Mm. But that was what I was going to say. Like, you look at your sort of initial start in Valorant, and no offense, but it's almost like the polar opposite of how it was going in CS. Like, you guys were one of the top teams in all of Europe within, like, I want to say like a month or two. It was incredibly fast. What was that sort of like? And did you ever expect that it would go that well, at least that quick?
Yeah, I don't think we expected it to go that well. I think we kind of knew we could do well because I think in CS like a lot of us have like the skill and like the mechanics, but a lot of it was just like the the knowledge and the brains and like the depths
Mm.
of CS. Like we didn't have anyone to kind of like teach us. Like all like the old like UK CS heads, they kind of they went went on to real life stuff. Whereas like in other regions, other countries, they kind of have like these kind of older figures that can teach the young people like and how to bring them up into like tier 2 and tier 1 in CS. And we didn't really have that too much. So then we knew going into Valorant, it's like everyone's at clean slate. Everyone's from like ground level. So I think that's where
Yeah.
I guess it kind of allowed us to propel so quick compared to CS.
So obviously, again, things went well initially. Artis ends up leaving the team. I'm a big CS fan. I know from you playing it, you're a big CS fan. When you found out you were getting your new teammate as Scream, what was the reaction? Because like I think I would have genuinely lost my mind coming from like a UK CS team and then going, right now I got Scream on my team now.
Yeah, I mean, at first we were like, what the fuck? Like, we're like, where's like how is this even a thing? Because I remember like we played against him a few times because like I think Prodigy had like their own teams where it's even like like the Siege player Shaco, even Mezzi was playing, Alex
Mm.
from CS as well was playing that this like mixes were playing against Scream and Mixwell. And then um yeah, basically when Ardis got waved a few gold bars at G2, he jumped ship.
It's fair.
So
It's fair.
yeah,
It's fair. It's G2.
so we really tried to keep him. Yeah, we tried to do some bribery, but it didn't work. And I think yeah, we heard then that like Liquid, I think they like signed Scream or something. They were looking for a +4, and then we were kind of trying to join there. And then I remember we did like a few trials, and I remember like the whole thing was like we will join Liquid if Scream wants us to join Liquid. Like if
Yeah.
Scream, like it was literally all down to him. And I remember like literally the first prac, Sliggy like came up with the most mastermind pistol on bind, where it's like we somehow like it was like the old school strat where it's like you throw something through a TP and you walk inside of it. This was
Okay.
unheard of. This was unheard of at the
Yeah.
start. Like no one knew this was even a thing. This is like voodoo stuff, in Valorant. And we did it and it worked like, perfectly. And I was like, oh my god, we're gonna join Liquid. Scream's gonna love us. It's gonna be insane. And I remember like we played a few games and towards the end like it was getting a bit rough. And like he
Mm.
went like radio silent for like 3 days. Like, oh my god, we're not gonna join Liquid. He hates us. And like even Jerome like couldn't really get in contact. And then eventually like he decided he wanted to, and I was like, oh thank God. But then even then it was like really really kind of a scary moment, but also like where it's like on one hand I'm playing with Scream, and on the second hand I'm joining Liquid, who was like my favorite org, and I used to watch all like their vlogs from like CS and stuff, and like they had my favorite players from CS.
Mm.
So yeah, it was actually kind of like a weird match made in heaven.
No, it was a meteoric rise. Now you sort of brought up Sliggy as like someone who was sort of with you from the beginning. What was it like working with him as a coach? Because you've worked with plenty of other people since, but I still feel like there's that cult Sliggy fan base that obviously now watches streams that like want him back in that coaching seat.
Yeah, I really enjoyed like working with Sliggy. He's someone I think who's very more into kind of like the strategy side of like Valorant. Like he
Mm.
I think he just hates like working with people most of the time anyway. So it's like, I mean, like I
Good
know,
trait
like,
for a coach.
I think he's just someone where it's like I know like his dream is like where it's just like just like everyone that is on the same page, and I think he wasn't really like a fan of like sorting out like the personal like personality problems or whatever. He
Yeah,
was
I
more
get you.
like he really enjoyed like the actual like they're getting nerdy with
Mm.
Valorant, and I think it definitely showed with like especially when Bacon then joined, like they were cooking up some crazy stuff, and even at points I was like, Sliggy, just it looks amazing on paper, but like when am I gonna land a double shock that with a molly and in a specific corner and a perfect timing? It's like at a certain point, like it probably won't work, but I think still like yeah, I really really like miss those times. Like it was super
Mm.
fun, that whole kind of roster that we had.
So you also mentioned the org, and I think again, like you have the comparisons to CS now going over to Valorant and joining Team Liquid. What was like the biggest noticeable change, like from being in one of those smaller orgs to being in as you like the org?
I think there's actually two things. So the first one is like I noticed that obviously we've got like a lot of eyes on us now. You know what? We're not kind of like these small kind of just random kids playing and no one's really
Mm.
watching. We're just playing
You're
for
not
fun.
small fish.
Yeah. In a big pond, or wherever to say, I don't know. Give me something I can tie there.
That is that.
And basically, yeah, I think at first, it was a bit daunting. I did notice though when we at first signed to Liquid, we were playing like a bit too professionally, if that makes sense. We're trying to do everything like exactly perfect because now we're in a big org, we're in tier one
Yeah.
of like whatever, Valorant at the time, and I remember like even like speaking of Eccles, it's like we're playing a bit too now like formally, and I think it was kind of hurting us a bit. Like obviously like standards will eventually like rise and rise, but I remember that was one thing that kind of like affected us, and then yeah, also just having now eyes and exposure on us was something that was like a bit different compared to UKCS, and also it's like I feel like a lot of us just jumped straight into the deep end.
Yeah.
In terms of that, it's like it wasn't like a slow like rise, from going small teams, bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like straight from here to all the way up in Team Liquid.
Yeah. Well, you ended up staying with them for a few years, and I wanted to ask that. What would you say, from your perspective, was like your fondest memory with that organization and with the team in general?
I think for me, there's just so many like little like nuggets of like memories that like really just like come together. Where it's like I think like yeah, it's even when when I'm sharing like the facility, like only me and Link late at night at the Liquid office, 4 a.m. goofing around, or or me and him in some hot tub in Reykjavik in some random hotel, and like I don't know,
Okay.
it's just moments like this. It's like it's just it's stuff you'll never forget, and I think it's these little like this tight knit kind of like friendship and this kind of close I don't know, yeah, like friendship and like personalities and stuff. Like, I really, really enjoyed it.
Mm. So overall, you look at a third to fourth at Champions 2021, top eight 2022. You got fourth at Masters Reykjavik. I
Hmm.
wanted to ask, you had solid results over the years. Is there anything that you regret or maybe that you would change in your Team Liquid experience?
Mm, I think, I mean, yeah, like I didn't really have like too much. Like, I don't know, like even like what I could even like change in terms of let's say the 23 roster. I
Mm.
think that was kind of like put together quite fast without maybe knowing what could happen in future. Because I think there was like it was like a few like clashes and personalities and stuff, and like we didn't really we kind of just went straight in, with the
Yeah.
team. We didn't really get to like try it out and see how it'd go. I think that's maybe like the only thing, but like still wouldn't take anything away from that roster at the same time. Like we did a good run. We won, EMEA, so like we had the potential there, but obviously like when it came to like the international stage, like it didn't really show too much.
Yeah, I wanted to then sort of lean that into more of an individual thing on your part because I would say that something we talk about with you is that you're a flexible player, but at times in Liquid it looked like maybe you were forced to bend in another direction rather than, okay, we're going to play to Dom's strengths. Did you ever feel like that maybe damaged your own performance at times when you feel like you could have maybe done more?
Um, I think it was like kind of like both like flexibility, like maybe at times I kind of had to, and at the same time like I kind of enjoyed it, and also there were certain maps where they kind of let me play. Because I remember like on Astra Fracture, like I
That
had literally.
I'm sorry. Just before you say, I was literally going to say one of my favorite things with you was your Astra Fracture, and you've said it before I even got there. That's
Like
crazy.
I was literally like I feel like I was like a one trick on the map. I don't know, everything just felt like perfect and like playing like the angles, like playing A main, you know, it's just like an aim map and stuff. And then obviously like it sucked. Like as soon as we play Brazil, then everything just went downhill. Like that game was, I don't even know what happened. But
Mm.
uh yeah, I think there was still like at times where like I kind of did what the team needed, but also I felt like I was pretty good at adapting and you know kind of just like playing new roles. It kind of yeah, it felt like fairly like natural to me, so I think I was like okay with it as well. But I understand, you know, if someone was playing the same role for like 2 years straight, the same kind of agents, you know, you're probably gonna be a bit more comfortable and have like better performances than someone that kind of like flip flops. But
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't
it's
think
even
that's
just
also.
like spots on a map.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
if you
exactly.
play the same space every time, you know your angles, you know exactly what you're
Yeah.
doing. If you're moving every week, it becomes a little bit more difficult. Now, I want to look at, again, you had a tenure with that team, you were there for a while. Who was your favorite teammate? I'm thinking you might say Link now because you've already brought him up,
Yeah.
but there were some insane players on that team.
Yeah, I think it's honestly like really, really hard to like say like a specific. 'Cause I would say yeah, like probably like yeah, like closest I was with Link. Also in like in UKCS we're like pretty like good friends as well and pretty close. So I think he's like an easy one to say, but I think also like I really enjoyed like my time with like basically like everyone like Scream, Cryptics, and Eccles as well, because basically like they're
Mm.
from UKCS and moving to you know kind of like at times I remember we all just sat back and were like, how the hell are we here? Like you know, it's kind of thinking about you know like UKCS. It's like it was really really awesome like to kind of see that. So I think it's really difficult to say specific because it was all like really like special kind of teammates to have.
Mm. Now, there's something with that organization in general is we always saw the investment. So, like, players around you had like Scream, Navira, Yumpy, Safe, Nats. Like, they were all crazy signings at the time, be
Hmm.
it people being brought over from CS or just this was the best guy of that team. Did that keep the pressure on you almost at all times? Because, like, okay, well, we can't fail because they've just spent crazy money bringing this guy in to make us better.
I think in my opinion, maybe it's like more pressure on them, like the people who actually like the player that gets signed for like that amount. Like maybe you know you've got more pressure on it. I
Yeah.
think for me, it's like it was more. It's like I just loved like the organization, the staff, and like the people that support us. Like you know, it's kind of more like you want to eventually like owe it to them. And I think you know it's such a veteran org. You know, you want to succeed with it, and like it was like a really like loving org. So I think that was kind of like my main view on it, rather than you know having like too much pressure that we have like big signings around us.
Okay, because I kind of wanted to lean that into like expectations. I feel like fan expectations when it comes to Team Liquid are always incredibly high,
Hmm.
especially with like, as said, these signature signings.
Hmm.
Did you ever think they were set too high? Like you mentioned that 2023 roster and it kind of being thrown together. People genuinely had the expectation that you had to win everything.
Hmm. Um, I think that was maybe like something that we kind of maybe felt at the start, but then we kind of eventually, you know, uh, there was like more I think important things to kind of think about in terms of like we actually just need to like knuckle down and like play the game and just because I think like maybe like before season starts, like I think that can definitely be on like people's minds and on teams' minds, you know, when like
Mm.
expectations like and tier lists and this and that. But um, you know, I think you know the classic example. Everyone's like, yeah, Heretics was like you know in pretty low tier before like they actually played their year and like they did well.
Yeah.
So I think yeah, I think we definitely did expect to do you know pretty well, but um I think it was also like you know we just take it as it goes, and you know there was a lot of like problems that came about. They weren't really you know prepared for. How do I say? Even like you know knew that were gonna happen. You know, so
Yeah.
there was like a lot of things that kind of happened.
So before we move on to like the Apex era, I wanted to ask, sort of looking back in hindsight, obviously the roster itself with Nat, Safe, Redgar, Young People, and yourself was pretty
Hmm.
stacked. Is there a part of you that wonders if you were given another year, what could have happened with that team? Because again, on paper, it still looks very good.
Yeah, I think for me like what I learned after that year was to kind of give myself more credit and confidence.
Mm.
because like there were like issues or something that would happen in the team, and even in previous iterations, and it's like I'd bring it up, and then it doesn't it doesn't really get like taken into account too much, and then like someone else brings it up, and then they finally like they agree with it and they fix it, and then it's like then
Ah.
it's all good, and then it kind of gave myself like kind of like validation that like uh, that I can also like kind of think, and I know maybe like what's good and bad for certain things. So I think like if we had
Mm.
like another year as well, just to kind of like trust myself a bit more and go with my gut a lot. Because even that's what the coaches told me. Like when I have reads in the game and stuff, like to just literally just go for it, and, like don't second guess it. Because a lot of the time he was right. I think at times I would just kind of like second guess it. Maybe I wouldn't say it, or I wouldn't have that like authoritative kind of voice. So I think those are the things that I learned a lot after that year. And so if like we had like let's say another year, I think it would have definitely like helped us and me a lot.
I think there's a moment in my head that from Apex that really fits that, and it is one of the few days I worked on Polaris this year. You got 2 kills through a Viper's pit. It was like a collat shot, just blind, and I
Oh,
think you said, "God's on our side. We're winning this game."
yeah. That's exactly what happened.
And you did win. To be fair, you were
'Cause,
correct. I
I
couldn't
mean,
believe it when it
it's like,
happened.
why else would that happen? Like we were kind of losing, we were throwing the game. Like we should have been winning, and I was like, this is our sign. Like please just take it. This is the only chance we're getting. If we don't take this chance, might as well just just
Yeah.
OF4.
To be honest, from there on, you could see the team rise up. So it definitely was the inspired words, I'll say. Now, obviously, after 23, you were dropped from Liquid. I wanted to just ask before we again talk about Apex. Did you try out for other like franchise teams or other teams within the tier 1 before, or was it just like, okay, I'm going this way?
Yeah, there was like there was kind of like some miscommunications and stuff. Like I won't really go too much in terms of like my trials and things at like Liquid. I kind of
Hmm.
thought I was gonna get it, but then ended up not really last
Okay.
minute. So then I wasn't really like prepared to do like too many things. And then uh I think like the two main like offers I was getting was actually Koi last year or Apex. And then I remember we were gonna play with also Shadow in Apex, but then he got an offer at the end to join Koi. And because I was thinking like maybe like I don't know like this I could also be like just talking out my ass, but I was thinking like maybe when I look back at it, it was either between him or me because I think we were at the very
Hmm.
end of the trial stage, but like I didn't know if there was like maybe more. But I think yeah, they ended up with him for him to be IGL, so that kind of made sense. So yeah, it was mainly just those two teams during that off season.
Like, you got there in the end, I guess.
Yeah,
You
eventually, all roads lead to Koi.
So one of the questions I wanted to ask, because obviously I feel like for a lot of players who maybe come up from tier 2, going back to tier 2 is difficult. For you, you were always in the tier 1 of Valorant at least. So were you almost hesitant at any point to take an offer in the tier 2, or was it just like, okay, this is part of the grind?
I think yeah, I think this is mainly like part of the grind because I think I probably needed like a year of tier 2 because
Okay.
like I think for me like personally in terms of the game, I think getting my confidence back and kind of yeah, getting that year just to just to essentially like find myself again. And I know that's definitely like what Emil wanted, and he was saying it's like in terms of like he believes that will be the best for me, like long term,
Hmm.
to like get back to tier 1. And also like personally, like in my life and stuff, it was kind of like in a weird way to put it, it was like the best. Or like it was a good time to go in tier 2 because tier 2 usually have more time to like be at home and like
Yeah.
yeah, basically at home and stuff. You don't have to travel too much, so it was kind of like if things fell into place at the right time. So I think yeah, tier 2 wasn't really like a bad like it wasn't like a bad year for me in terms of like Valorant.
Fair enough. Now, obviously, again, you end up on Apex. I feel like you may be a man who loves high pressure situations because you've gone into the team which everyone knew their goal was to win, and there is
Hmm.
no. I guess that's every Ascension team's goal, but
Hmm.
your team kind of had the money to back it up. So,
Yeah.
was that again something you thought about where you're like joining this team and going, "Shit, here we go again. I've got to win it all."
Yeah, I think there was that kind of aspect, but I was also trying to just, at least show like my best self as well, like
Mm.
in and out the game, because like I was kind of also just like using it to yeah, like I said, just like just train myself, and in like worst case, let's say we don't make tier one, I can maybe get like a trial or something for
Yeah.
tier one orgs, and then maybe I can get myself back in there. So I think like there wasn't too much pressure. I think there was like a bit of pressure on myself to kind of like perform, because I was like worried, I was like, man, if I do like suck or something in tier two, then it's like I feel, I worry like it might be
Yeah.
hard to get back. But then um I think with everything that happened in the 23 roster in Liquid, and like me getting more confidence and like kind of trusting myself a lot, I think that definitely helped me to like perform like really well in tier two. So
Mm.
yeah, I was like feeling like pretty confident like towards the end of the season.
Well, what does Apex say to you when you join that roster? Like, is it as blunt as like all the fans or maybe me would imagine, where it's like your goal is to win. If you don't win, that's it. Like, or whether like I know the Apex
Yeah.
guys, they're very friendly, but like, was it as blunt as this is your goal? You need to achieve it.
I mean, it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't really like blunt, but the message was clear. They kind of wanted us to win. They put on
Yeah.
all the eggs in one basket, and I think we knew that. But I think we were also like very confident in terms of like the roster that we had. I think
Mm.
we had a very well built roster, and I think that also just didn't put too much pressure or worry on us in terms of like, oh damn, to somehow make a miracle. It was very realistic for us to win. I think in terms of like what players we had, and so I think it was like a really good recipe. I think for success for Apex.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was kind of that.
When you were first like signing to them, was there any team that you went, oh shit, that team actually looks pretty good. I should not. This
Oh,
might be more difficult than I thought it would be.
I mean, I think like either so like because I thought like Mals were like pretty decent,
Mm.
even like maybe like even Job Life or
Yeah.
uh yeah, I think there was like a few rosters here and now, even like any of like the Turkish teams. I feel like any one of them can just be
Yeah.
like really good. And I feel like it's a bloodbath down there. Like I don't know how they play like out there. Like it's honestly a bloodbath. Like they're all so good. So I think there were like some teams like I think we didn't expect like Pacific to be that good compared to like the
That's
other names
fair.
that were in
But they
tier
were a
two, because
Premier team. If you did expect them to be that good, I think you would have had to be a little bit insane.
yeah, I mean
Oh, this
true.
Premier team,
Yeah,
they're going to be the best. They're going to
but I don't know.
finish second in Ascension.
Yeah, I think I don't know. It's just some genes over there. It's just insane. Like
Mm.
they have like the best wide swingers. But I think yeah, there were like a few teams that were maybe like that could that could be up there with us. But yeah, I think we overall we believed in ourselves like quite a bit.
Yeah, I wanted to ask. I feel like now most people would look at like a kayak, but I wanted to ask, when you first joined that team, did you go? Was there anyone who caught you off guard where you went, "Oh, okay, this guy is crazy," or "This guy's communication is a lot better," or any of those sort of like assets?
Um, I think yeah. I think kayak's like the easy one to say, but I think also like I think any of like the other, I think like basically every teammate on there was actually like really kind of surprising, like how well like they play in the game and how well they think and just communicate and everything. Like
Mm.
I also like really uh enjoyed like kind of like Evova's like kind of whole it's just who he is and how he is as a person. Like he's honestly just, and even Mosey, like this guy just sometimes just he has no it's basically it's just a Polish guy. Like I don't know, it's just he just yaps nonstop. Like this guy just loves to speak and loves to yap, and it's honestly like
Have you
such a
heard about
great
him being kayak's cab driver? Because I heard that story twice.
kayak's cab driver. But I
He
don't
said
there
that
was
to me just before we did a piece of content, and I was like, he's fucking with me. Like, there's, cause, and he was like, and then he brought it up again. He went, no, seriously. He came to LAN in Poland once, and my agent asked me to pick him up. I was like, that's not the same as you being a cab driver. Like, I just really, like you said that in such a deadpan way that I was like, was that his
yeah.
old job? Like, I mean, is he messing with me?
Honestly, I don't think you can ever know with Mosey. Like you could be saying like the most troll thing, but it can actually be true. Uh,
That's the thing. It
That's
was
the
true.
thing. Like you obviously don't know of him, so I think yeah, it was actually a really like well-rounded team, and
Mm.
there was obviously like things to kind of like things they had to kind of you know push into the team in
Yeah.
terms of they kind of because they kind of put like a lot of trust in me, I think, in terms of like um having like good experience. And I think, yeah, essentially they trusted me a lot, and like they valued like what I had to
Mm.
say. And I really tried to like try and push like certain things with the team, trying to keep like a standard. And especially like it was good help with the coaches. Danny and Desmond were like really helpful. So I think they also allowed me to kind of uh it was actually like a perfect kind of team for me, because it wasn't like too strict in terms of
Mm.
like you have to do this, and if you like, oh, why did you peek here, why did you do that, it was like quite a free flowing team. And then obviously there are times we had to like fix mistakes here and there, of course. And it was a bit hard at first, like because we'd play like Polaris for like
Yeah.
basically the whole year, and it's like you don't really get tested that much until like we got to Ascension. And that's when like I think we definitely evolved as a team like a crazy amount, because I think that's one thing I was a bit worried, like
Mm.
you know we haven't really been pushed too hard. Like I'm worried that some mistakes will come out that we didn't see that were mistakes before. But I'm kind of glad like how we all adapted and stuff.
With that, those you're doing very well to segue my questions.
This is my show.
Polaris
Tombizz, how are you
is
doing, mate?
Yeah, Polaris is somewhat a farmers league. That was what I was going to say. Was it? Do you find it tougher playing? I guess almost mentally at a level that is. I don't want to use beneath you, but it kind of felt that way when we watched you play throughout the league. It was like, okay, these guys have turned up, they banged out the match in 20 minutes, and now they're back to whatever they were doing in their day.
Yeah, so like in theory, like the Valorant, it is kind of, I think, hard to always like 13-2 every game, just the
Yeah.
nature of the game and like how snowbally it is. So like I was also like really like impressed and proud of how we could still like basically do like 13-3 for like at least like the first split, like pretty consistently. So I think obviously that was like quite, I think it was probably like also surprising for us as well. I think we expected to be at the top, but like not that dominant
Yeah.
so quick. um so I think there were still like at times where like games got a bit close, like in split 2, I think. And there were
Yeah,
still
the
like
one day I was there, I was your
yeah,
bad luck charm.
basically, please don't cast my game then. But I think, yeah, I think obviously it's also like hard to have like a very like, I think, strong league when there isn't much I guess support from like maybe like bigger orgs and stuff to like push
Yeah.
and get like different names and stuff. So I think it was kind of understandable why the league was the way it was. But I'm still pretty happy how we played considering that.
Mm. Well, that was another thing I wanted to is just with your VCL and then some of the others, like you mentioned, Turkey, I would say even DAC at times, being stronger as a whole. Which do you think is easier? Because obviously, I feel like for you guys, it was almost like a free ticket to Ascension, but for others, they kind of got tested a lot more and then got to play those Ascension games. So, do you have a preference, like personally, which you would rather have played through?
Um, I think like a mixture, like I want it to be like fairly easy, but not too easy, Like I want to be able to win,
Like the
and at least
Incredibles race, you want a close second.
exactly, like you want to just tease a bit and at the end just send it, like. And
Yeah,
then
yeah, okay.
so I think, I guess it helped us, like we get like loads of confidence, and just like yeah, getting like good clips, good good matches and stuff, stats, whatever, blah blah blah. I think that's also like a good thing for like the mental. So even if you go in like you're a bit delusional, you think you're insane, but like you haven't been like tested too much. Like I mean, it's
Hmm.
still it still kind of helps. So I think a nice mixture would be good.
Okay. Well, Ascension did come around, obviously, and you lost your first game. So maybe that answers the previous question. Did the challenge that met you there come as a bit of a surprise? You played against Go Next, who ended up being a team that didn't quite make it as far as they probably would have liked, but had some fantastic players. What were you kind of like caught off guard, and did that match almost kick you into gear?
I think, yeah, I think it definitely like kicked us into gear. I think we were kind of it's kind of like when certain teams or players like you play your first like official in like a few months, and like you kind of get that like shock on stage where everyone's like
Yeah.
coming too much, or like like people aren't focused, or as it gets a bit messy. It kind of, I think, felt like that. There was like quite a few mistakes that were happening that we basically, it was essentially the thing was like we weren't really tested too much. And I think what was good about our team was that we're able to kind of, bounce back really quick and also just play from comebacks a lot. I think that's one thing that
No.
we noticed a lot is like we're actually like really good at playing comebacks, and I think we were able to also like just after every game we learn a lot of things. We just talk about the whole game, go through the whole VOD, and just talk about what we did good here, what we didn't do good, and just try and implement it really quick. And I was really proud about how we could implement it like that fast.
But you mentioned the comebacks, and something that I noticed from casting some of those games was, like you said, you had the bad streak, Danito pause, win game. So I kind of just want to ask, like, what was, not necessarily what was he saying, I don't want you to leak their strats for this year, but like, what did he do for you as a coach? Because I think there were visible things that he did in matches, but I'm sure there was a lot more behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think it was kind of this like one-two punch from like Danny and Desmond that helped us a lot. I think Daniel was like a really, really like a good leader for us, and like kind of like a good like he had like a good vision for the game, but also like kind of this good kind of vibe as a coach. He was just like really just like friendly and like just even when like when he's speaking timeouts, is not like gonna be like super mad and flaming like pissed off and stuff. It's like I think them
I
two.
thought
Like,
you were going to say like Pipson, but we'll move on.
no, no, I can't do that. And then basically, yeah, having them two, I think, worked really well. So whenever we had like a pause, I was kind of like, yeah, because I kind of said also like before like the games and stuff. I think it's it's good to have I kind of don't want to have a timeout where it's like guys play together, peak together. I would rather have a timeout where it's like we actually have a solution, like what we do actually in the next round. And I think when we started doing that, I think that kind of helped us during these timeouts. And I think we're naturally as a team, we weren't really like getting tilted too much or like getting phased if we're like 3-11 down, because we had like in a way like the data to prove it in terms of like we played like a bunch of these games, even in practices where like we'll be down a lot, we just instantly have like a really good comeback. So I think also we had this, we went through every stage of like mental boom where it's like we lost the first game, the second game I can't remember what happened, we won, and CGN like we were down, we did some impressive comeback. And I know when we got to the finals, like guys, we went through every single stage of mental warfare. When we play against Pacific, it should be like if they're down, or if they're getting like beat or something, or if they start throwing, maybe their mental won't be as like good as ours. So I think that's what kind of helped us a lot.
Well, yeah, that was the next thing I was going to ask is, in that final, you were down, and was there ever a point within that journey that you ever thought, like, actually, maybe we're not going to do this? Because I think from getting to Ascension, even after the first game, everything looked really clean. That was sort of the team where everybody went, holy shit, are these youngsters actually going to do it?
Yeah, I think we were a bit shell-shocked when it was Ascent, and they were, like, killing us like they're playing at home from Turkey, like, thing. Like, I was like, how the hell am I just getting, like, jiggle peeked one-tapped on LAN? Like, this doesn't make sense. And then I think, yeah, like I said before, like, our mental resilience, I think, helped us a lot. And that kind of experience, I think, kicked in when they started to maybe lose a few rounds. They got a bit too, like, hot-headed. They were standing up, and I was like, why are these kids standing up? Please sit down. 4 of you can't make it in VCT at the moment. Like, next year you can play and you'll be insane. I was like, because like these kids are like actually so good, and I was like, guys, just please let us win, because I know if you guys win, Riot is going to be in shambles. They don't know what to do with 4 missing players. I was like, please. But then, oh yeah, I was kind of glad about how we came back. And I think especially like even I think like what was I think like even I think now like some of them are gonna play in like in 2-2 again, and I think it's like it's actually impressive to see like how many young players are like getting like really good opportunities in Valorant. And especially those Pacific, because I remember like that was the one team that I think scrimmed a lot and we were like really close with in terms of like just I think like goofing around and stuff. Like we were like pretty like good friends with them. So it was like it was kind of like a perfect finale to all of like tier 2. So yeah, I'm glad with like all the things that we had, the resilience and whatnot, that we could win it.
Well, I was going to mention as well, in that grand final, it kind of proved my point from earlier about your flexibility. You played a Sentinel, 2 different initiators, and a controller all in one match. Do you think that is what your real value is as a player, just the flexibility that you bring to a team.
I think so, yeah. I think because I just enjoy kind of like coming up with like new stuff and just kind of thinking on the fly. I think like adapting and stuff. I think like that's what I'm like. I'd say it's like one of my strengths.
Mm.
So I think also like I kind of knew the strength of deadlock, and I think some people like didn't as much. And obviously that comes with like some caveats when you have deadlock instead of like another initiate or something. It does make the game a bit weird, and I
Yeah.
think for us we kind of knew like especially in like tier 2, like you probably won't be as punished as hard as if you play against some of the best teams in the world. So it's like we kind of knew we could get away with it. So I think that's why like I kind of stuck to it, and then I kind of think that's where like my value is, like one of the main values.
Yeah. Do you think Ascension is the hardest thing you've done in Valorant? Because it is
Mm,
basically, of hundreds of teams, you were the one.
it is. I think it is hard. I wouldn't say it's the hardest, but I do remember there was a specific moment. I was playing Ascent, and this was T side, and it was like near the end of the half. And I remember I was like, I was kind of sat back, and I even said it actually to my team before, and I was like, we're like, it's just 5 of us here, and there are like hundreds of other teams left that are knocked out, and like they want to be in our spot. I remember I was kind of sat there. I was sat there. Wait, I don't know. There's a bike. I swear there's always bikes on my road, man. It's like you got like American weather bounty. I don't know what show it is, but it's just, like all these choppers. It's just chilling. I'm like, that's the wrong country. But yeah, I remember like saying to my team, it's like we're in this spot, and like there are hundreds of other players that want to be here. And I remember I was also just sitting. I was like, I felt like pretty chill. I don't know why, and I felt
Mm.
relaxed. I didn't feel it was like too pressured or anything. And I was like, it was kind of like a weird moment, but it was a really like nice feeling, and it kind of you know it was like a lot was going through my mind in pre-round in one of the pre-rounds. I don't know why. It was like a whole story about my whole life in this tier 2 thing,
Mm.
but I think it was I think definitely the hardest mentally, but I do think also like some like champs events, they were difficult. But I think I would say though, like with everything that happened and whatnot in that year, I think it was definitely like uh I would say all around it was like the hardest year, and super like kind of grateful for like the team that I had and the support. And
Mm.
right, I even remember like at the end of the when we won, like I'll never forget this. I literally said this to Mosey, like I literally appreciate this like forever. Is that I remember like after we won, like he literally said to me, he made me be the one to like lift the trophy while like he was in tears, and I was like, I literally like that even moment, like I'll never forget, and like I appreciate it a lot. And that team was like really something special. So obviously, then going into this year, it was generally like a really really difficult move to do, which is to like kind of leave
Yeah.
Apex behind. So it was like really really difficult. So uh, yeah, that was definitely like a special year for me.
Was very cool as well because you obviously had the EMEA trophy and then came back and won the Ascension one. So it's like,
Hmm.
I feel like they gave us the moment we wanted, but I appreciate him for doing that. This question, I don't expect a proper answer because it's a very difficult one. But is there a teammate you think you'll miss the most from that team?
I think it's really. I think it's the whole. Yeah, the whole every teammate made that team kind of like a special kind of place. So it's like really like
Hmm.
every every teammate covered like a certain ground, if that makes sense, to make it like a good environment. So it's like if you don't have this one guy, then something's gonna be missing that maybe this guy won't bring. So it's like a really really good balance. So I think it's too hard, but I will miss like the whole like how at times we're like so like unserious during like like our times like in the boot camps and stuff with like chilling and just
Hmm.
talking about stuff on the sofas and stuff. So yeah, I think it's like the whole team.
Okay, so now we move on to the bit. I said about 40-45 minutes people have to wait. I've almost got that spot on. So you run the gauntlet with Apex, win one of the toughest tournaments of the year, join Koi. How has that happened? How's that come about? What was the decision making behind making the move to Koi?
I think there was like a lot to think about. I think I kind of knew even before Ascension started that Kayak's getting swiped somewhere somehow. So it
Yeah.
was like that was already gonna be like something that we'd have to fill, and then also like knowing about a few other things that were happening with like roster moves in the team that kind of like it it was making my choice like slightly like a bit easier, even though it was like still difficult. But then um I think there's like a lot of like personal reasons that why I kind of picked Koi to kind of like
Okay.
help out at home and stuff. So I think there was like a lot of reasons that kind of went into it. But it was honestly like such a difficult thing. 'Cause even for me, it's like I hate kind of like uh I would say like leaving people behind, but I even remember like back in UKCS, I literally gave up a trip to go into Cancun to go play in an Insomnia mix event because I didn't want to let my teammates down. And I remember I was like, "What am I doing, man?" I remember like, "Why did I give this up?" So then I remember I was just like I had like a long talk as well with my mum and stuff. So I was like, uh, that I think it was like a lot of reasons why it kind of made made the choice for me to be in Koi.
Oh, I've never been to an Insomnia, but if I had the choice, I would not have made the choice that you did.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good choice.
You have kind of like obviously moving to Koi, they're a team within the partnership. I think they have ambition, but you have ultimately joined the 11th place team within the franchise. Was that something you thought about when doing it? Because it's like obviously they're going to rebuild, they're going to change things, but they were the worst team last year.
I think there was that kind of stigma. I think like now like knowing Koi, it's like they have like the facilities and the support and
Yeah.
everything to be like a top team. I think that wasn't really like a doubt, and I think I knew a lot of it was just probably just like the roster maybe didn't gel as well last year and whatnot, and maybe just some things happened that I don't really know what's going on there, but
Yeah.
um I think for me, like, it wasn't really like too much of you know, a thing to think about. Like, I know like some people like, maybe I even remember seeing like someone from Koi tweeted out that they have like a bad stigma, like the bad like people don't want to join Koi because of like what happened the years before.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of like more related to the actual team rather than the organization. And if they're rebuilding, then it's like that what happened last year doesn't really like exist, at least in my opinion.
Well, yeah, that's actually one of the things that obviously, as a commentator, you hear a lot of rumors. And one of the things I have heard about Koi is that, especially with the Mad Lions guys, organizational wise, they're one of the best. Like, they will, very good support wise from everybody who's worked there. So I think you made a good choice in that regard. I will say, though, on paper, this team definitely still looks like an underdog. Like, they've kept Shados and Grabinho, who I definitely don't think are bad pieces, although I think Shados definitely wasn't at the peak of what we know Shados could do, thinking back to Gambit. Flyer definitely seems like a little bit of a gamble, and Filu seems like a pretty big gamble. And of course, yourself, who I would say, which is weird because you've come up from the tier 2, but you're probably the most proven on the list. So do you see yourselves as underdog after like playing with this team for a little while, or do you think maybe expectations are skewed?
Um, I think like I understand why like people may think that. Like I've seen like the tier lists and stuff, and I kind of just like skim through it because it's like it's kind of
Don't look at mine.
funny to see. Yeah, don't worry, but bomb the barrel, mate. I've
Oh,
seen
damn.
I've seen all of them. But I think it's like at least it's like less pressure. Like people don't really expect too much, so you can kind of just do your own thing and not really worry about it too much.
Hmm.
But I think for us, like I think we also have like we have like a really good like balance of players. Like I'm really like impressed and surprised by Flyer. He's like,
Okay.
it's crazy how much like this guy can like talking around and tell people what to do and not stutter. And I'm like, and like he can just talk so perfectly. This is insane. And then it's like I wish I
Does
could
he
just
do
do that.
coaching? I could.
I mean, I need coaching as well. Like I don't know how he just talks like flawlessly, but I think it's yeah, I think we have like a good recipe. I understand, maybe why people won't think, we're like gonna be like top tier because obviously you got other teams that are like building like super teams, uh,
Mm.
and like gambling a lot there. So, but I think in past experiences, I know also like these gambles are actual like big gambles. It can like kind of be a bit risky, and like if things don't go well, things may like implode. So, I think I'm also like not really too worried, and yeah, I think more I'm just really eager to just play on the stage again in tier 1.
Well, we have seen a couple of matches from you guys already. Obviously, best of ones in front of crazy audiences. Firstly, how was that as like a whole event? Everything there looked incredible. But also, do you think people should be worried about those results, be it that they're off season and a best of one?
Yeah, so I mean, like, I think yeah, these kind of off-season events are just more like trial and error events, and like, I mean, especially like ours were just like show matches.
Mm.
I think we kind of like learn a lot. It was like the same for us. I think in Apex, I remember we went to the Superdome in Egypt last year in Apex, and we just completely bombed out. But it's like I think we learned a lot within that event, and I think it's the same I've noticed in here. It's like I think it's kind of like a pattern that many teams have. You know, when you get into the first official, it's like kind of like a shock. There's a lot of things going on, and like mistakes happen you don't really see in practice. So I think it's like not too many things to worry about. Like we all kind of see, uh, you know, why things turned out the way they did in the show matches.
Mm.
I think also like the setup. It's not in prime. We're not in prime setups. In terms of
Okay.
like, so it's like it's not the worst because like you know, audio problems. Here we got another American chopper. Okay, it's probably not too bad. Okay, no man, he's back.
That was perfect timing. Perfect timing.
Bro, he stopped. It's because there's a bump next to my house, so he took his time to go over it and then he just sent it again. But I think, yeah, I think we're gonna be when we go into like VCT, things are gonna be how we expect them to be. Like a good setup. Audio and whatnot should be all good. So that was something to kind of get over. But I think it was a good learning experience, as like probably most teams will want to have. Like especially like that's why most teams are doing these off-season events to
Yeah.
kind of learn and get all these like small kinks out and before the actual games start.
Okay. I wanted to then talk about the coaching stuff because you're now working with Gorilla, Comet, and Bambino. I would say maybe, at least from the outside, they look like fairly different style of coaching staff to Danito and Desmo, who you had before. What is your initial take of them as like coaches?
I'm really impressed about like how they kind of like view and like how they kind of just work together as like a team. And this is also like I think the first team where in a tier one team, we're trying to be on time on practice on the hour. Because I remember there's like a meme where it's like if you're in tier one, you have like 10-minute grace period on the hour when you practice. Everyone like starts at like like 16
Who's the
09.
latest team? Who's the
I wouldn't
oh,
guess. Who would you think? But this was a bit last year because this year,
last year?
yeah.
Hmm.
'Cause I
I
know one
want
of
to
two
say
teams.
Vitality.
Okay,
But
I
then
think
again, no, wait, that's Gorilla and
no,
Comet
yeah,
again. So
yeah,
if
okay,
if
yeah.
if they're on time, then their players are probably on time. Ooh, that's really difficult. I have no
Okay,
idea.
so I think like what's funny, it was probably Koi last year, or
Okay.
or any of the Turks. Like
Okay.
they always I don't know, they're just always
They're
late
chilling. They're chilling,
or
you know?
on smoke breaks or something. I don't know. Like they're always they take their time, but
Okay.
I think yeah, with this coaching stuff, I'm really like also like impressed of like how in depth like things can get in terms of like how actually like seeing it on paper. Because I think before it was like a lot of it was like quite abstract in terms of like previous teams of like depth and stuff. We should do this and that. But in here, it's like it's nice to have game plans and you know I think it is like really beneficial to have like essentially like free coaches because we also get like help with like one-on-ones and then like the strategic side where it's like we can get really in depth with things. So I'm really impressed and I'm really glad to have like these coaches on board with us.
Mm. Well, I'd say these are three people I'd say I know decently well. They're all massive nerds, but
Yeah.
also all very good at actually taking stuff on board. Like,
Hmm.
I think that from what you were saying before with like old stuff where you weren't sure if you could like input stuff in, I
Hmm.
know for a fact in this team you
Yeah.
definitely can. Like, I don't
Yeah.
think there's a doubt there.
Yeah, and I feel that as well, and it's like it helps me as well, and it's like it's kind of like a continuation of Apex, and I think the reason that I think why we're pretty good at Apex, and why I think I had probably like individually like some of the best like the best year, I think was
Mm.
because of like the trust and support, and like I felt like everyone was at the on the same page, and same level. So I think it's a really nice kind of team that we have going on here, and especially the staff.
So you kind of brought up Flyer already. Now, he was someone that I think not many people saw as a signing coming. It has been the Americas signings that have sort of been lighting up EMEA as of recent. How would you say he compares to previous IGLs you've worked with? Is he up there with the best? Obviously, it's very short time with the team.
I think he's definitely up there. I think the thing is with me and my kind of experiences with IGLs is that I kind of had IGLs that were kind of forced to be IGLs, if that makes sense. Like Mosey,
Yeah.
like he didn't really want to be an IGL too much. Like before we kind of it was basically going to be either me or Mosey. But I remember then Mosey was just like, he kind of wanted to just like try and take on that role, and he said he's already getting a bit older. He wants to use his experience and stuff. So
Yeah.
I was kind of more that kind of second IGL at times. So I think with Flyer, like I'm really impressed about like how quick he can call certain things, and I think, yeah, I can tell it's natural in him, into call, and it's also like I remember at times we had memes in Apex, we had language barriers with Mosey, like when he was with Polish speaking English, it's like rap god, and sometimes he would miss a few things, but I think here it's like yeah, I'm overall just really really impressed of how Flyer calls.
Okay. Well, this one, I'm going to make the same comparisons, and I feel like it might be a bit harsh, but you have played with genuinely your duelist list of teammates is it's almost unbeatable. I feel like you have to almost get like a Durka in there at some point. But you played with Scream, you played with Safe, you played with Kayak. How does Filu compare? Because I think if I'm looking at this team and having my doubts, we saw him in Ascension. He was decent. But moving to Tier 1, as you've mentioned, as many have mentioned, it's a different ball game. So is this kid someone that we should be looking out for?
I think for sure. I think he definitely has the potential. Like he shows it in prax. He has like crazy good performances, good rounds and stuff. He had trials with like many teams and got like many offers and stuff. So he does prove it, and people within the scene know. I think there's obviously like a few maybe like maybe a few bad habits that are like kind of coming out from like tier 2, but that's like kind of to be expected.
He
And I
was in
think
the
it's also
Italian league, right? So it's kind of
yeah.
similar where
So it's
you can
another
get away
like
with it.
yeah, another like Barbers League. So it's like it was kind of I think it's kind of expected maybe to have like a few of these things to kind of iron out,
Yeah.
but I think it's also kind of in a way it's kind of like I don't think it's too bad to have like a duelist who kind of just goes out a bit of from the system, and does like
Yeah.
overstep a bit. Like it's kind of good, and you kind of need that at times. So I think he's definitely someone that has crazy potential, and I think people will see it.
Okay. So I wanted to almost look back on all of the teams because you've been with three very well respected and big organizations. I wanted to sort of ask, like, is there anything that for each one that sort of stood out as like, okay, this is why you'd want to play with Liquid, or this is why you'd want to play with Apex? Because from the outside, they all look like unbelievable orgs to work with.
I think it's really hard to say, like even which org and this and that, because I think like for me, I think Liquid is always going to be like a special kind of place. Like I might even be wearing some Liquid stuff underneath here, so that's why I had to put on a jumper because it was cozy. But I think yeah, I think like they all have like their own kind of like a special place in me within me, because you know Apex that whole kind of year was like a very like a defining kind of moment in my life outside the game and inside the game. Liquid at the start of Liquid, it's like my kind of birth into esports. Giving me that kind of opportunity and sticking with me for like over 3 years. And then Koi, I think like they have really good foundations, and I'm like super excited with like all the staff and the support they have, and like the new facilities and stuff in Berlin. So I think it's really promising.
Okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about Ibai because obviously slightly crazy owner, massive streamer, very vocal when it comes to his expectations. Do you like the fact that a team's like basically owner is so heavily involved, because there's not that many organizations like that in all of esports who are going to be on Twitter going like, yeah, fucking Soulcas missed that shot, I'm docking his pay, like chatting shit basically.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is with me, like I'm also like kind of battle scarred, well worn type of CS float, like in terms of
Okay.
being in esports, where it's like I've had like the worst of the worst, so like it doesn't really like affect me too much. Like I honestly it's like I don't really just I don't think it's healthy to kind of always just think about like that and like the expectations and like knowing that you have like this big kind of following. But I think knowing though that at least there is support out there is definitely like super nice, and it's definitely like you could feel it when we joined Core, even when there was leaks. Make a tweet and it's just like suddenly I just get like 60 comments within like 10 minutes. I'm like, this is crazy, And I think it's like it's super like heartwarming to see like the support, and I managed to get like a chance to speak to Ibai. This was even at the Worlds like after party. He was there. Like I was kind of surprised. I didn't expect him to be there, and then was one of the content creators as well was there from Koi. So it was kind of nice to kind of get to know them and like break the ice a little. And I think I think they're super nice guys, but it's something that I don't really want to try and think about too much when knowing like these are the expectations. 200,000 viewer watch parties or whatever. It's kind of like if it's to me it's like now it's kind of like the same, like the pressure. It's like it doesn't really change too much.
Okay, so I've got a few more questions. This one just, where do you think you guys will place this year? If you had to make any sort of prediction, like to give fans a little bit of an expectation, like how do you think you guys are going to do?
I genuinely think like we could honestly be like, okay, if I'll sound crazy to like most people, but like I honestly think we could be like a top 4. Like I think
you're gonna fuck
like,
my tier list.
Happily, bottom of the barrel. We're doing a little reverse rule. Like
it was actually battle of the bottom, but close enough.
All right, close enough. But I think we definitely have the potential. We even we've kind of shown it in practice. Obviously now it's like you kind of have to like show it like in officials. That's when it's like things are a bit different and the environment's different and whatnot. But I think I want like our goal is at least to like qualify to champs, and for me I want to qualify like personally I want to still qualify to basically every Masters event, because for me like I basically didn't really miss any. I only missed I think like 2 Masters events in my whole time in like tier 1, and this is the only time I'm going to boast about myself. So this is my one. It was one time I could do it, but it's just like I've been to many of these events. I want to keep that kind of streak up. So yeah, I think that's my kind of like personal goal, is to just still make it to Masters events, and whenever we get to that bridge, then then we'll see what happens from there.
Sounds good. I want to ask you about some of the other rosters. So obviously we kind of have most of them either rumored or completely confirmed. What other roster would you say you're pretty excited about going into next year?
I think Apex. Obviously, it's like is a big one, especially like being like my former orgs and former teammates. And obviously like the what's evolving there is like super exciting. And then I think even like seeing how like Vitality is gonna do, like we know it's like the kind of the golden roster in terms of like it's all big names, but we'll see like obviously how it goes like long term. I know everyone kind of thinks that, and maybe they will also kind of like think people will think that, so we'll see how that maybe even that might help them out, and they may realize that they can't really like get too scrappy or like implode like and whatnot. I think Vitality is obviously like an exciting team, and then who else is? I think even like teams like Gentlemates, and I think it's like a really good like I think mix of teams that we have this year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it seems super open. I think, funnily, with that Vitality roster, I think a lot of people are looking at it like the 2023 Liquid roster. It's like it's pulled together a crazy group of players. It's just if it works. And exactly. They have the same issue. It's like they don't really have like a quote-unquote IGL. So it's exciting. It'll be hit or miss. Who do you most want to play? It might be a similar answer. Like, do you want to play your old teammates?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it'll be fun. I know they definitely want to. Like, I can definitely sense it. So it's like, yeah, either Apex or even Liquid again.
Yeah.
Because I think those are the two teams will be nice to play against, and I think yeah, I think those two teams for now.
Okay. Well, just to finish, is there any message to, but well, I guess any of the sets of fans we've spoken about, but probably more predominantly the Koi fans who will be
Yeah.
lighting up your comments.
Yeah, yeah. I think just believe in us. I think trust the process, even though it's kind of a cliche word. It's very like kind of overused, but I think I think we expect to do big things, and I really appreciate all the support that everyone's like shown so far, and even in like previous teams, like any of like from previous orgs, like any like supporters and stuff. I appreciate everyone for like sticking around, and I'm just kind of very glad to be in tier one again, and hopefully I can do some drag movie clips on stage. Because I really wanted to get like an insane ace on stage, and I feel like I was just one champs.
Mm.
I just get like a top one highlight reel, like yes. But
Hey, I need
yeah,
the montages back. The editing on those was fucking sick. I used
but I
to
might have to
really
during
like
Christmas
watching
break.
those.
Christmas break's
Okay.
coming. Maybe I have to.
Okay. I'm looking forward to it. Either way, Soulcas or Dom, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I would say to people to go watch like other videos on this channel, but he's not gonna like my tier list, so I won't say that one. But
Yeah,
you
no,
guys
no good.
can like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
I appreciate it. See ya.